Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I have to apologize for turning up late because there were some problems of logistics which prevented me from arriving on time. But I'm sure our colleagues here has got everything fully prepared for everybody's comfort and pleasure. Before we proceed to introduce Professor Kang, I just need to explain a little bit about what our institute does with our what we call leading edge lecture series. In addition to forums, seminars, exchange scholars and conferences and all that, we have a particular activity called leading edge lecture series, which we feature established scholars from all over the world to give talks on their most advanced studies. But today, what we have today is, but let me just put this off for a second. So in this lecture series, there are three directions, all three orientations. One is focused on humanities between traditional and contemporary culture. And the second, the humanities between science and technology. And the third, and as well as the last, the humanities between migration and hybridization. In fact, these three orientations cover pretty much everything in the humanities and social sciences. But of course, the institute is not only about the humanities and social sciences. We try to be as cross-disciplinary as possible. So in our upcoming forums, there will be an AI and humanity forum very soon in mid-August. So I welcome everybody to participate, where we will feature one scholar from the field of AI, and robotics, and a scholar from psychology who's also working on AI and humanity, and a scholar from the philosophy department who's also specialized in AI and sense of subjectivity, and myself. But this particular speech is actually in between our leading edge lecture series and our summit forum, because I originally planned this to be a one-day symposium where we feature 4 talks, but then it was very difficult to squeeze everybody into one day. So in the end, I just decided to still call it a forum, but in fact, in practice, it's more or less part of the lecture series on a mini series on the Anthropocene, post-COVID-19 views of Anthropocene, and formally this is called with a viral eye, the Anthropocene, or revisiting the Anthropocene in the post-COVID-19 era. Yeah. And we're very pleased to have our first speaker, Woosung from Seoul National University. Woosung has been here for almost a year now. Right? Yeah. So I guess I don't really have to introduce you, but still, we have to go through the procedure. Woosung Kang in Chinese characters, Zhang Yusheng. Is that the Wu means universe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Zhang Yusheng. So I figured we should call you Woosung Kang, right?
Yeah.
Rather than Kang. Woosung Kang, yeah. Because Zhang, Zhang is pronounced Kang in many Chinese dialects. So Woosung Kang. Woosung Kang, he's here. He's been here working on many things. Among which one is Hoshashi.
Yeah.
So maybe one day we'll hear you talk about Hoshashi when you come back, or
maybe I'll talk about it next month at some other places.
Oh, great. All right. Well, let me first introduce, I'm giving a very brief introduction of what, what he's like. he was a BA from Seoul National in 1990, and then BA in English from Seoul National in 1993, and he got his Doctor of Philosophy in English from State University of New York at Buffalo in 2002. Quite young. Okay. He's published actually quite a few books. Freud Seminar, Translated Poe, Painting as a Gaze of Philosophy, University of Intellect, Literary History of American Literature, The Birth of a Style, Emerson and the Writing of the Moment in the American Renaissance. Which of these is in English?
Yeah, it's my dissertation.
Yeah, so the last one is in English.
Yeah.
The other ones are in Korean.
The translated Poe is in English, but the other one is in Korean.
Oh, great. Right, so it's, if you're interested, there are two books to which you can have easy access in English. And he's actually translated quite a few books, two by Zizek and Forthcoming, and a few others. And today, we're very happy to have him begin this mini-series with his talk on that's a very long title. Can you say it for us? Rhizomic thinking and machinic ethics. But originally it was just how humanities can help us survive in the Anthropocene. I figured that's what he's going to talk about.
This is the subtitle.
Yeah. Okay, so without further ado, let's welcome Woosung.
Thanks for a wonderful introduction, and I'm really happy to survive here in Taipei. My friend and my family is all suffering from throughout this past months, with the struggle with this COVID-19, and especially you all know that the Korean society has suffered a lot during this winter, especially 2 or 3 months. But right now there's a certain kind of second break, but I'm not sure. But I'm really happy and fortunate to be here and stay safe and continue my study. And it's kind of forced to self-quarantine for me, and then during this long winter I have to write 4 papers and prepare for the two book translations and things like that. So really productive for me, but I'm exhausted right now. But I'm really happy to Sebastian invite me to talk about this one. So this is the conception that I had with this Hung Chung at the last December at Tokyo, and we talk about the unpredictable weather and the effect of Anthropocene. But I was really, at the time, really vague about this. What's going on in the Anthropocene and how it relates with this kind of outbreak. And then, as you might know, that there is a certain, right now, this philosophical trend in philosophical theories, like we called it the new materialism. Lots of theories are presented there. So I just, take this opportunity to think about the connection between this, the coronavirus outbreak, and then the Anthropocene, and then the idea of new materialism. So that's one of the, the link that I, present to you today. But it's just it's my connection, so it's not official. So I just trying to, find out this, to use the word from Deleuze. I think about this cartography or the geography of these topics. So that's what I'm, going to talk about today. And the other one is how you picture this the post-viral world and how we cope with this the new situation that is ahead of. So I'll think about what kind of choices are left for us. Either to fight with every time we meet these disasters and outbreaks, or just accept like the new age person, like the spiritual triumph or something like that. So I'll try to find out this whether there's any alternative way to think about and change our own way of thinking and living. And so, in a way, I'll try to show you that one of the films that released 2 years ago is called The Annihilation, made by Alex Garland, who also made this famous, exciting movie, Ex Machina. Did you see that? I think you are familiar with this one. So I'll take this the movie Annihilation and show you some clips from the movie in the middle of my lecture. So that's why my answer to why, how, and what we can do as a humanist in order to cope with this post-viral scene and Anthropocene. So let me start with showing the. This is just the brief introduction of my thinking. This is really funny. I don't like, it's not like me. This is 3 pictures that I show you. This Deleuzian idea of rhizome, how it you picture yourself about the situation. And what Deleuze talks about rhizome is, as I saw later, that this is the horizontal connection between the one entity to the other entities and the lots of multiple entities. The way they connect is quite different from the way we usually think about one of the structures or the biological connection. So there's a roots and there's this trees. So there's very much horizontal, the vertical, and then the hierarchical. So we find always this origin of the life, and it just flourishes, and with leaves and stems and things like that. But this the rhizomic idea comes from this the horizontal connection. But there's no origin. We don't know where this all connection comes from. There's only the beginning and end, but there's no origin. So it doesn't. You cannot reduce everything to one point, like Big Bang or something like that. So this is a new picture of this the rhizomic thinking, and this is clear contrast between horizontal and vertical, but the way they link is a structure of the linkage. When you see this in a bird's eye view, it looks like this one, like you might familiar with this picture when you saw in the TV when you heard about the spread of the coronavirus, how they infect with other person. This might be the infectant. And it's caused to like this one, just randomly infected with each other. So there's no definite logic or horizontal, the vertical, like just steps or chains or things like that. Just random connection. This is the rhizomic kind of way. So this is a basic idea. So a lot of my ideas comes from Deleuze and Guattari's, the terminologies, but it's not just like that, similar to Deleuze and Guattari's idea versus this my take on the thinking. So why virus? So where does it come from? Really interesting, right? I was really absorbed of this, thinking about the virus during the self-quarantine. So I look up every kind of dictionaries and encyclopedia about the virus. It's really, really interesting. The virus is, the etymologically is called poison, and in Latin and Greek word. So it's a Western the Western thinking of virus is a poison. It's a malignant aspect of our life that encroach about normal life and make some kind of catastrophe. But it turns out that this is neither a life nor a death. So it's really, really like a zombie-like, this living death. So when you think about this, the way they spread throughout the living animals or living cells, it looks like life, but actually it has no self-generative factor. It always has to parasite on the host. So without living cells, you cannot replicate. So at one point is in a way of replication, virus is looks living, but actually it's not a living cell. It's made of just protein. That's just a protein. Yeah, protein, and this protein, RNA or DNA protein, and it connects with this living cell, the bad cell of living organism, and then it comes out to outbreak. So this, as you see in the picture there, this virus is come to the hosting body, and it makes some kind of malignant effect, and it produces this lot of multiple way. That's the way we infect it. But it has no self-generative, self-moving mechanism. It always has to be, by way of medium, the host, like human beings and other animals. That has to be the helper. So. The virus is like so neither alive nor dead, and it replicates within the host cell, not multiply. The self-generate like bacteria. Yeah, bacteria is more highly developed form than the virus. Yeah, bacteria is self-generative. Yeah. And so it's a parasitical and inorganic and heterogeneous to the living cells. It's not just homogeneous with the living cells. It always makes problem when it goes into the living cells. So there's a lot of theories how this virus comes, but the scientists are not they don't agree with what's the origin of this virus. But the strong majority of the scientists and medical doctors agree that it's a remainder of the malfunction of the living cells, probably. Yeah. It's not coming from the outside, the extraterrestrial or things like that. It's a problem they made out of these organic cells. Has this malfunction. So it's like when you so get tired and your immune system was just broken, and then there is a virus comes in from the outside. The virus is everywhere. It come in contact with your living cell, which has really some kind of problem. It causes like there's a flu or something like that. So the virus itself is not malignant, even if they term it a virus like a poison. So yeah, the key point is just blind automatism. It just keep replicate itself from throat to throat, doing nothing else. It's just it's quantifying itself. Nothing malignant. The malignant effect comes from when this virus is coming in contact with the cells, living cells, which has a really big problem. Not every living cell is affected. Some kind of problematic cells, like when you are deadly tired or you got sick or you have any kind of other pathogens, this virus comes in and make a problem. So the lesson of the virus is you have to be careful about your own health. That's why the virus, does how we react to this virus, situation, right? Yeah. The always problem is human body or living cells. organism, not the virus itself. It's not virus. Virus is not malignant, like, you know, this evil power that comes in to destroy us. Yeah. It's always everywhere. You know, even our bodies always has this, a lot of viruses. And then this is produced and spread along, you know, cultural fault lines. So this problem is not natural. You know, you cannot wipe out the source of the virus. The virus is more than million you know, things in the world. You know, it's only 5,000 to 6,000. You know, the sources are known, but everything else we don't know yet. But it's everywhere. So it's not malignant itself. The problem is cultural thing. So we are the problem, not the viruses, right? Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good thing to remember there. So let me, you know, crisscross the virus and bacteria and cell and hosting and things like that. It's something, I don't want to go like a scientific, you know, lecture or something like that. But in order to think about it, I will really, you know, schematize your ideas. So the virus is, I'm sorry, virus looks like this one, you know, and the bacteria is like one. So it multiply like, you know, multiplying schedule 1 and 2 and 4, and you know, this is really increasing way. There's really the bacteria have some kind of regular you know, mathematical way of replicate itself, like a multiply. But the virus does not follow this, you know, regular pattern. This is why we call it outbreak. It suddenly just, you know, explosively multiply, you know, not in a way that this bacteria was replicate itself. So this so start from here, and then you know, suddenly there's a lots of, you know, millions of you know, viruses just, you know, outbroke. So we just, you know, cannot control them. So bacteria can be controlled, like, you know, this, you know, you have, when you know, wipe out your hand, you know, within 20 minutes, you can just wipe out every bacteria. But virus is still, you know, just, they don't go away easily. That's a big problem. So the bacteria is a cells. Yeah, it's independent cells, but virus is just nucleic acid protein. It's not a, you know, the independent separate organism. So it's a paralytic and things like that. So the way this virus is multiply is like this. This your normal cell divide by this way, the 1 and 2, and this one 2, and this one. This is like bacteria with the normal cell. The healthy cell replicate in this one, but sometimes you know, the damage the cell just go away. It cannot. It can replace by other cells. But the cancer cells, like virus, you know, the structure of replication is really close and similar to the cancer cells, like virus cells. It just, you know, multiply suddenly, so outbreak. So you cannot control. These other cells, the healthy cells cannot you know, cope with this kind of this heavy, you know, multiple, you know, inflosion of these viruses. So that's why we have, you know, getting ill and fell sick. So go back to the, you know, the tree-like arborescent model and the Rhizomic model. You know, when you schematize this diagram, it's like, you know, there's origin, and then everything else is just, you know, bifurcate from this one origin. This is why we usually think about this all kind of, you know, the origin of our world and origin of our, you know, human beings and origin of our many problems, right? So you face this problem here, but you just trace back to the source of the cause of the problem, right? This is the way we always talk about and solve the problem. But right now, there's other one, the Rhizomic world, which is really, you know, parallel. Exists parallel with this arborescent way. Like you think about these potatoes or these sweet potatoes. The stems are just, you know, tangled with each other like this one. We don't distinguish which is the root, which is the stem, which is and anything else. The way they link is like this one. So the nature has these two kinds of network, if you wish. The one is arborescent, the other one is rhizomic. And we modeled our social, cultural structure according to this arborescent model. There's that's foundation and all kinds of things. Like Marx talks about is the space and there's superstructure, right? Yeah, and then there's this fundamental, ground, and upon which we just build everything else, things like that. But the Deleuze talking is that we have to, think otherwise. So we have to think about the other way of linking socially and culturally, horizontal way. That's what he called the rhizomic one. And curiously, the structure of a rhizomic connection is very much looks like a virus. So virus is replicate itself like Boris style, 1 and 2 and then things like that, and then there's certain outbreak. But in contagion, when they contagion, it's just like a rhizomic way. So this virus has these two kind of connection, network of connections in nature. That's why we have to focus about this. The virus is kind of metaphor for thinking about a new way of linking things and networks. So before I go going into this Anthropocene and this connection with this virus, I would like to briefly, talk about this the Deleuze and Guattari's terminology of this one. But really, this is a really simplified one, so you don't have to memorize it. It's just a simple idea there. As you say, the rhizome is non-arborescent. There's an arborescent way of linking things in nature and societies. And the rhizome is non-arborescent. It's horizontal, the basic network of things. The things including human beings and everything else. So there's basically 6 ways of connection. The principles of 6 ways of connection. The network can be connected, but there's only the 3 ways of connection in Deleuze, like connective and disjunctive and conjunctive and things like that. I'm not going to that, but there's a connection, always connection, but this connection is not unilateral. It's a lot of 3 ways of connection, and then the connection always happens. Not always happen between the homogeneous ones. It's always connect with heterogeneous ones. That's the way this rhizomic connection works and expand. We think about ourselves. We always get friendly with good friend, but when you think about this bad guy, you just exclude him or exclude her from your connections, right? This is really natural. But the rhizomic one is everything can be connected with heterogeneous one. You can connect with your own thought. You can connect with your animals. You can connect with your walls, and you can connect with your tables and things like that. And this connecting and heterogeneous connection really comes from the Bruno Latour's as ideas, and then there's a collaboration with Bruno Latour. And this connection and heterogeneous connection is always multiplicity. Not just it means that this connection comes from just one point of origin. It always happens multiple way, in every way, in a ubiquitous way, and then they connect like this one, like a sweet potato stems. And then this 3 ways of network of things has not signifying structure. This is really revolutionary rethinking of the way the Western thinkers think about the societal and cultural connections. We used to think about this the Jacques Derrida's idea that there is nothing outside the text, so everything is textual. When they mean that textualist is not that everything comes down to texture. No, it means that everything has meaning, and this meaning has connection, a significant connection between this representation of meaning. And then there is also Lacan talks about this, our unconscious is structured like a language. So language and signification, the sign, the signifier, signifiing is the basic model of network of things. So it always has this signifying structure. It has meaning, has to be meaning. Your own being in the world has to have a meaning, and everything else has to meaning, and they have a strong connection between them. But this rhizomic idea is asignifying. There's not necessarily has everything has connection, has have meaning. There's an asignifying rupture has to be there in the rhizomic way. So this is not a kind of a textual structuring. It's cartographical, geographical searching of the way we go and the way we connect. And that's the basic principle and then picture of a rhizomic world that presented by Deleuze. And this rhizomic nature of things are moved by not any force or something like that. It's always powered in a sense by intensities. It's not a subject moves the object. Any kind of subjectivity cannot be involved in this. It's only the intensities, how they connect, only in intensity. It's something like energy. So energy moves you around. The driving force of rhizomic, non-entities network. And the rhizomic network with intensities forms as a medium kind of way of structure. But it's not actually structure. It's called assemblage. It's a set. It's composed of the heterogeneous, asignifying ruptures, and within a certain kind of space and time, like we do. We have every kind. You don't have any kind of connection. Otherwise, my lecture, right? But we formed right now has some kind of assemblage, talking about and thinking about this rhizomic and machinery idea. And then this assemblage has several kind of assemblage formed another one that is called a machine. It's not a subject. It's a set of assemblages, non-hierarchically structured manifestation of assemblies. So we call it, war machine. We call it, the government machine, the university machine, a theory machine, and things like that. So we things like there's symposium machine or something like that, and assemblies also, and things like that. So the machine, the rhizomic connection, networks by intensities, forms, assemblage, and this assembly, several assemblies, made consist of a machine. And this machine works at this abstract matrix, the virtual, the matrix where machine operates. It's called, plane of immanence. It means that there's nothing outside intervenes in the operation of this assemblage and machine. So always this machine works within itself, only within itself with intensities and connections and disjunctions. So this is called the plane of immanence. So what do these machines doing is the territorialization. It takes some kind of territories, or the deconstructed territories, or reconstruct this kind of territories again and again. So the way this machine works is a territorialization. So you can make territory, your spaces, and you demolish it and then reform it with other assemblies and other machines. And the lines of light is a specific form of deterritorialization. When you go into certain kind of machine and assemblage, you have to get out of this assemblage and machine in order to survive. And this only way to survive is, for Deleuze and Guattari, is a line of flight. Just get away, just escape, without any kind of lingering images or something like that. So you think that your relation with your lover is destructive, just line of flight, just go away. Don't drag it down. It makes you worse. It makes you, it's not a good assemblage. You always go out. Yeah, that's a really sentimental kind of version of this line of flight. Yeah, this is very schematic. So just yeah. I think it have to further our thinking. Okay. So, why is coronavirus 19 is different from the other one? Yeah, there's a lot of talks, and when I translate Jack Liston's book Pandemic, he suggests a lot of ideas about why this coronavirus 19 is different from the other one like SARS and this new flu or something like that. There's 4 or 5 ways of make difference why this COVID-19 is different from other viruses and other disasters we experienced and we have had in the previous history. So one is that it is not caused by nature, but by human being. So I call it a cultural environment, not natural environment. It's cultural environment. So I'm not saying that by cultural environment that is entirely human, related social one. Is I don't think there's a clear boundary between nature and social and cultural. So it's probably it's mostly man-related, human being-related kind of environment that caused this virus. So what we call normal was not normal, because the virus was outbroken from the one we call it normal. So it's not normal actually. It's abnormal from the standpoint of view of right now. So we hope to go back to normal, right? But it was the place that the virus originated. Are you really hoping to go back to the normal? I don't think so. We have to have to create a new kind of normal, which is not abnormal in the standpoint of this virus. And the second one is actually the Bruno Latour, the quote from Bruno Latour's idea that it seems like a dress rehearsal of the faster and the heavier disaster they're coming, they're surely waiting for us in the future. And he called it the ecological catastrophe of the Anthropocene. So the Bruno Latour and Zizek is the two of the thinkers who really talks about the relation between this coronavirus outbreak and the Anthropocene and the crisis. So this is two kind of catastrophes. I'm sorry. It's really similar in the reaction of the human being, how we react to these two kind of disasters. Before the coronavirus take break, we don't really expect that something like this can happen. Even if we already experienced like a SARS and every kind of MERS or something like that, but we don't really expect that we can go to this kind of the citywide lockdowns and statewide the containment and things like that, right? We don't think it's possible, but we maybe, but not really, right? So we know that there's anyway anytime this virus outbreak can be possible, but we don't really believe that is possible. So it's in the area of impossible. Yeah. The same thing goes to the ecological crisis. We all know that if we go on like this one, in a short while, we just collapse. We just the earth can just be a wasteland, as you see in a lot of movies like, the Wall-E or something like that. Just in a few hundred years, the Earth can be a waste basket, a cesspool and everything else. The ecological disaster is surely coming. But right now, except some few ecological activists, no one really seriously believes that we're going to die because of these environmental disasters, like the coronavirus. So it's completely human being. That's the problem, not natural and things like that. So it's entirely up to us how we connect, or how we continue our living. That depends on it's an ecological crisis. Can be immediate future, not just few hundred this long time future. And the third one is the incompatibility of the health and the economy. As you see there, if you have lockdown, self quarantine, you feel that you can save, but you can starve, right? That's a really big problem. The quarantine and health cannot go with the economy that we have so far. So students and professors are really fortunate groups of people. We are really accustomed to self quarantine, right? So we don't have to dedicate ourselves to self quarantine. We always do the same thing, right? But people who really work and you have to work for the living, when they have this kind of incompatible choice before them, you have to go work and risk your health, or you have to stay at home but risk your life. That's what Donald Trump said, right? You stay at home but starve, stay and starve, or work and get infected, right? No other choices left for us, most of them. But we are really happy, right? We don't have to do that kind of choice, right? Yeah. So, either health or either economy has to be changed in order to compatible between them. What choice can be for us? Do we have to sacrifice health for the economy? No, I don't think so. We have to change the economy. That's the message that the coronavirus has to do. And that's the way the Anthropocene is talking about. We have to change our way of living, like economy, rather than the health or something like that. Yeah. And the other one is the human being. For the first time in human history, think ourselves as a pathogen, as virus that infect other people. The reason why we really wear masks when we meet people is that it's not for your health. Well, ultimately your health, but it is to prevent making ourselves as a virus to other people. What you're really afraid of is not virus itself, your infection to other people, the people you care about. That's really scary part of it. You remotely contribute to the possible deaths of your beloved person. That's really hardest part of this coronavirus, right? And this is the first time that we, human being, can be identical with the mere virus. Whether you have degrees or whether you have monies, that's not matter. You just the mere virus. If you infect other people, right? Yeah, that's really hardest and saddest part of this one. So some people cannot accept this kind of hard fact. So they blame others, like people of Wuhan and China, people of yellow Asians. They blame other people, human sectors, as the kind of origin of this pathogen, and exempt themselves from this kind of self-accusation to being a virus. So it's a misanthrope or racism. It's a really new kind of phenomenon there. Not every kind of disaster followed by this racism and misanthropy, But this coronavirus has really, really strong bias and strong discrimination from one race to the other race or the other people. Yeah. And then, so a lot of nation states responded to this virus as kind of war. This war with the virus is kind of really prevalent idea that we have to fight this virus and completely win over this virus. But as time goes by, we came to realize that this is not a war. We cannot win this war because the virus cannot wipe away like your enemies. It's always around us. Whether some viruses are fatal, but some others are not that fatal. We didn't know that the coronavirus is that fatal. So we all know that this is not fatal, right? The SARS and MERS is much fatal than this coronavirus. But we still think that coronavirus, this is moderate fatality rate virus, make us lock down and contain every cities, every station and state. So new kind of the change of ideas has to be needed. So it's not a war with the virus. Virus has no evil, malignant intention to attack us. It's just multiply themselves from throat to throat. Just what they do. The problem is us. So it's not a war. It's not emergence. It's a kind of this everyday life, and we have to cope with to live with the virus. How to live with the virus? It is a new kind of ethics that we need. So, this is what I was thinking when I was in a lockdown, in a self-quarantine in my apartment and spent time reading and translating the books about COVID-19 and Anthropocene. So I really think that it might help you. So how this, this newness of this coronavirus can be linked to the idea of Anthropocene. So I think there's four kind of sentiments that we have, and I want you to compare this the four responses to your response to this virus, right? So the idea of the Anthropocene is that the man, a human being, and for the first time in the whole geological history, can be one of the elements, a strong element force that can change this geological pictures. So before that, this Anthropocene idea of the Anthropocene, mankind just be the part of this whole change of geological, this transformation. But human being, they can change the whole, the system of planet and the universe with their own forces. And that's the way of the idea of Anthropocene comes in. So it's not a good word for describing the human being as just achieved something like this. We are a great force of this, in the planetary history. It's something that you are not going to be the good force in the geological history. It's a disaster for us to be the strong force in the history of geological time. So we became the host of the earth. This is the sentiment that we are the host of the earth. We can be the master of this world, the earth, and we can do whatever we want. We can change the energy, the streams. We can change the way we consume our energies. We can wipe out the mountains, and we can just emulate, reclaim this, this seaside. And we can build whatever kind of storage building. We can connect with every kind of things like that. So the human being can be, thinks themselves as kind of host of the earth. And the other one is the anthropocene. The idea of anthropocene always comes with the disastrous catastrophe that we have in front of us. The climate change and global warming is the two prominent symptoms of this climate catastrophe. So, in a word, we are in deep shit unless we do something right now and things like that. This is the rhetorical phrase of these activists and every kind of proponents of the Anthropocene always say, we are in a deep shit. We have to do something. We have to recycle. We have to carry out our own mugs and things like yeah. So we have to do some kind of fair trade or recycle and everything else. But we don't know. This really get help to prevent or slow down this kind of catastrophe, right? Yeah. But we stupidly doing this thing. So we are in a deep shit. Are we? I'm not sure. And the third one is, all this problem comes down to us. So we are the culprit. We cannot blame the nature or natural forces. We are the culprit. We are the one who made all these problems. So we have to do this one right. That's the message of Greta Thunberg. She always talks about in the UN and then the other states. You guys, you made this kind of the shit. So you have to. You are the one who have to make it right. So think about this way. So we are the culprit is connected with the anthropocentrism. So why the Anthropocene has to be the overcoming or this getting over of the idea of anthropocentrism. So we are not the center of the universe, and the host of the universe has to be rethought as a new kind of ethical attitude among the human beings. And then the last one is really annoying for me, and I'm not sure, but I'm really annoyed when they already talking about the clock is ticking now. We are in a think about the whole history as a 24-hour. We are in 23 hours and 59 minutes and 27 seconds or something like that. So we just to the catastrophe just 30 seconds away or something like that, and the clock is ticking. So you have to do something right now. I'm not sure. How could you calculate the catastrophe in a 24-hour frame? How could you picture that we know that we were going to die and the earth can go wrong and things like that, but we cannot scientifically calculate our own demise and catastrophe. The clock is clock is always ticking. We don't know the world without us. Maybe we could be the contributor to our own demise, but we are not sure that the clock is ticking now. So the originator of the Anthropocene, the idea of Anthropocene is the scientist Paul Crutzen. He's writing on the nature that it seems like that when he writes this one, this quote is really he's really hopeful of the way we can cope with this kind of crisis. So he said that unless there is a global catastrophe, this is a condition, unless, but that there was catastrophe like meteoric impact, world war, or pandemic. I just instantly know that pandemic could be one of the disasters that the procurement I think is unthinkable, but unthinkable happened. The pandemic, maybe the meteoric impact can be happen in any time. The world war, still there's a high possibility, but not anymore, right? Since the Second World War II. But pandemic is the real threat for us. So unless there's a global catastrophe, this sentence has to be changed as there was pandemic, catastrophe in this world. The idea of anthropocene has to be changed, right? Yeah. The mankind will remain a major environmental force for many millennia. No, I don't think so. We cannot control the virus, this tiny micro viruses, but how could you control the earth? I mean, we just scared of this invisible, tiny microwave, this thing. And we can have, this all kind of lockdowns and we just, contain everything. How could it be? We say that we are the major driving force of the environment and the planet. It's nonsense, right? Yeah. A daunting task lies ahead for scientists and engineers, as well as normal people, to guide society toward environmentally sustainable management during the era of the Anthropocene. You focus on the word that he used. He's a scientist. He used the environmentally sustainable management. Yeah. Still, he thinks that we can manage like a CEO of the company. Right? But this is, I think, it's illusion. This will require appropriate human behavior at all scales, and many will involve internationally accepted, large-scale geoengineering project. Yeah, geoengineering. Sounds familiar, right? Yeah, we can engineer the nature. Yeah, it's still there's a remnant of Heideggerian. Idea of Gestell and technology. For instance, to optimize climate. How could you optimize climate? I'm not sure. Optimize, we can optimize virus, but we cannot optimize the climate. At this stage, however, we will still largely trading on terra incognita. So the last sentence is correct, but the other one is just not true right now, after we experience this coronavirus 19 and certain kind of disasters. So the idea of Anthropocene is this kind of four kind of urgency that we have to think about, but it's much more serious, and we have to think about the other way of alternative way of thinking the humanity as kind of non-host, corporate way. So, so the dilemma has to be found out in order to redefine the Anthropocene as a kind of viable concept. So what I'm talking about is four categories of dilemmas that when we talk about the Anthropocene. The first one is there is a clear disruptive and uneven relationship between human history and the geological time. Geological time cannot be divided by year or the century or something like this. It's just eons and epochs. But historical time just in the year by manual, chronological way, and it has not go hand in hand. And the Anthropocene is the idea that you can manage it, you can think about geological time in a human kind of history. So people try to pinpoint where this Anthropocene starts. Some talk about, the majority of Anthropocene theorists talk about this Industrial Revolution is the turning point of Anthropocene. Oh my God, I mean this few hundred years ago, the Anthropocene start. Before Industrial Revolution, what could it be called? Is it just Holocene? And so there's a lot of opposition, and then so a lot of people think about, and then go back further. It's just 1610, and when these European countries start to colonize the other world. Yeah, I think there's a really good point. The idea of navigation, idea of occupation and colonization is a really good critical impact on the Earth's history. But I don't really sure that that's the starting point. And then some of the more realistic scholars go further back to 10,000 years back, and then they talk about the starting of the agriculture and the domestication of the animals.
And that's what we call culture start, right? That's the problem. So, yeah, I understand why they talk about this agriculture is the starting point of Anthropocene, but so do we have to go back to the agriculture, before agriculture, just grabbing the fruit on the mountain? Right? So I'm not sure, this. So there's a really big problem there. You cannot pinpoint Anthropocene at the geological time by the genealogy of human history. That's always a problem. And some really stupid scholars talks about that. 1960 or 1945, when the atomic bomb was dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Atomic bomb can be if you imagine the atomic bomb was made in the natural way, it takes million years or something like that. But people can make this one, within a few years, and then they just succeeded. So that's the turning point. So we are lying now. Everyone probably was born after 1945. So we are in the Anthropocene people, but people born before 1945 is not Anthropocene. We are not the same kind of species. They're the people of Holocene or something like that. I think it is a really stupid idea. How could you pinpoint the start of this Anthropocene? That's what scientists always do, but we don't. Humanities, we don't have to do that. I'm not sure that. And there's another one: the discrepancy between the slow, long-term effects of the geological change and immediate responses. Yeah. They all talk about this catastrophe is inevitable. It could be one day in the long term, but we should react immediately. The clock is ticking. So it makes you guilty of not doing. Right? Yeah, I know that it's a good thing to recycle and when you use a tumbler rather than use your plastic bag, but I'm not sure. So there's a discrepancy between the long-term geological effect and the immediate demand of action. And then there was this, what could be justified in this situation? The balance between ecological justice and political struggle is always a problem. That's the it's two words of this. So carbon. So we have to reduce the carbon is the first priority of our action, or we just wipe out the capitalism. Is capitalism conducive to ecological catastrophe? Yes. Yeah. We all know that capitalism is not a good system to ecological environment, right? But is it possible to wipe out the ecological problem by changing capitalism? Right? No, right? Yeah. The capitalism is the really big part of problem, but the transformation of capitalism to something other cannot be the answer to ecological problem. But ecological struggle, ecological justice cannot be had without thinking of alternative system to capitalism. It's also true. So this ecological justice and political struggle is always a problem. So some people call that it's not Anthropocene, it's a Capitalocene. So the start of capitalism. The blaming capitalism, everything is not a good way to think about the situation. It's not scientific. It's not scholarly way of thinking about the crisis. So this is an intricate problem. We have to balance how this. That's what we scholars do in the humanities. You have to find about way how they connect, how everything this capital or carbon, and what if there's something else that can solve this problem. That's the way we have to do. And the last one is really, really difficult problem, and still on debate. And it brings to the rise of new materialism, which in recent philosophical scene. Who is the subject of this movement? We know that human being is responsible for this crisis, but are we the subject automatically of this moment? I mean, do we believe ourselves as a kind of problem solver? Are you sure about that? I don't know. Yeah, we are the culprit, but we are not the one who can save this world. Maybe we can save this world from. We can borrow some, other kind of creatures from other part of the universe. Did you see the movie Arrival? The Ted Chiang's novel made into movie. This extraterrestrial creatures coming into Korea. They actually want to save us, but we don't really understand what they say, so they just go back. Oh, this human species is just helpless, have to go back. Maybe. So maybe we are we can be a part of this subjectivity, but we have to think about other kind of subjectivity that other than ourselves in order to cope with the situation. So that's really, really difficult and hard, and it's not easy. But scientists, natural scientists, engineers, they don't have time to think about this one. They just really busy, making kind of new kind of technology to cope with this one. Shoot the meteors and make the vaccines and treatment. But that's not a fundamental way of treating these disasters. We have to think about who or what can be the subjectivity to face and confront this crisis and catastrophe. So there's four kind of things involved in the idea of Anthropocene. So when you talk about the Anthropocene, you have to at least you have own answer to these four kind of dilemmas, right? Without this one, you don't talk about the Anthropocene. It always comes to you. You have to think about this way. So for me, so this is the core part of my lecture. this is the picture that I try to think about whole the past 2 months is about how to think about the man's situation in the planet and universe. So I think it's kind of why Anthropocene and anthropocentrism is fatal to the idea of Anthropocene is that we still think that we are a host of the universe. This host has a kind of metaphorical, but actually practical way of thinking ourselves. We have to figure out ourselves as kind of what kind of presence we have in the earth. So I by way of doing this, I would like to introduce you the idea of host, being hosted. Host has several kind of meanings, and how we think about hosting as a kind of making ourselves as center of the universe. And the way why I introduced this idea is to let's think of this idea of hosting to another one. So we still think that hosting has kind of mastering. Actually, I had the several other kind of name, but at the last moment I just make a rhyme. So I start to unify with M. The master, manager, mediator, and marshal. So just there's a slight difference to what I'm talking about. So master. So we still think that the master, the hosting means the master of the planet. So human power comes from within ourselves, with our technology and civilization. This human power has precise domination over natural force. there's the time-old struggle between the civilization and the nature. Yeah. The human power has to be over the natural force. This is basic idea. It's ontological, ascendance over the nature, and it remotely connect to this idea of enframing, the Gestell, this Heidegger's idea of Gestell. We are the one who mold the universe. We have all kind of power to win over the nature, and it's directly linked to the idea of faciality machine in Deleuze and Guattari and Southern Plateau. I recommend you to read this faciality machine, especially capitalism, and how it was devised to dominate over the nature. So it's probably the master, the host as a master is the idea of the ontological domination over the nature. So, and the second one is the manager. It's more intricate. The master will be, if you compare master as a father figure or the landlord, the manager could be due to the mother who's housewifely. If you host, you can think of the manager of the household, right? The household is the old name of oikos. So you think that this entire universe is kind of household, and you are the manager of these old things. So manager means not just domination. It's a domination by your reason. So you have to distinguish everything. You have to classify everything. You have to discriminate everything in order to control. So you are the one who names everything. You are the one who classifies everything. You are the plant and you are the animal and everything else. So classifier of everything. That's, we call it anthropomorphism. So everything has to have a human form or human category, as a human paradigm can be applied to everything else. So we think about how animals and plants grow and live like the way we do. That's one of the kind of anthropomorphism. And this is based on the idea of representation. The thing that we cannot experience has to be represented by something, the human. And the third one is mediator. It's this really intricate idea, and then it comes up when I think about the virus. The mediator is not just we just became a medium to virus to other people, but it thinks that there is something everything was out there, and they are not connected with each other. But the human being is the connector that links this heterogeneous, these multiple things, by way of our human being and our existence. That's the idea of mediator. So, self-claimed HUF or central intelligence, like a CPU in a computer. So you are the one who connect everything heterogeneous and everything different into your center. So you are the HUF, you're the pistol. And there's another thing, another side of this medium, that you can be the host of the pathogens, viruses. So you cannot just link everything else. You can deliver virus to other people. So it's two kind of things. As a mediator. And the last one is occupier. You are the one who take hostage of the planet. The host means the landlord, but at the same time is occupier, the hostage, take hostage, otage. The occupier taking hostage of the earth, using everything for humanity. We can use for our humanity everything out there. This is the idea of occupier and marshal, user of technology. So this is four kind of ideas of becoming host is intrinsic in the idea of Anthropocene and anthropocentrism. And so unless we just keep continuing to be a host on the planet, we have to change the way we think about these four kinds of mastering, managing, mediating, and marshalling the planet. This is really hard work for us. And this only, I think, the humanities scholars can do. Yeah. So this is four kinds of hosting. Against this hosting, I think that the theorists of Anthropocene and proponents of the new materialism comes up in order to cope with the situation. Then the significant way of overcoming Anthropocene and the catastrophe is to get out of the anthropocentrism, the human-centeredness. Yeah. That's really critical task that before us. So I'd like to show this. I might have 10 minutes or something. Yeah, okay, 10 minutes. Okay. I hope you are not boring about it. This is a movie that I want to show you, briefly show you the penultimate scenes. So Annihilation is made 2018. It was the original story was written by Jeff van der Meer, which is really an active writer and ecologist who is really had a lot of thinking about how we doing in the planet. This is really. Is it really the poster that you are familiar with in Taiwan? Is it released here now? No, I'm not sure. Why this annihilation? Released? Mainly China. Is it connected with the annihilation?
Yeah.
Really? Is it just born out? Oh yeah. All right. Okay. I'm just curious about it. Thank you. The same name, the Annihilation. It's a trilogy. There's two other books, and then this the movie based on the first book of this trilogy, the Annihilation, but they take motive from two other books, and then the same trilogy. So it was the biologist is a heroine, and she's talking about self-narrative about her adventure into this kind of this weird zone and how she dies after that. This is really I really like it. I recommend you to spend the summer with Jeff van der Meer's this trilogy of this Annihilation. So it's a story about I just briefly picture what goes on in this story. 3 years after the meteor landing at the southern coast of the U.S. It's created the shimmer. We call it shimmer. It's like this. The center of area X, where a weird ecological mutation has been active after the meteor crash, creating a hybrid biosphere devoid of human beings. So no human beings can survive in this zone. A lot of people go in, but no one comes back except some guy. So this hybrid biosphere was created after the meteor. And several abortive military trades after, a band of female experts, including soldier come violinist Lina, embarked on 12th expedition. Now, this is the story of this female expedition. The film follows the perilous trail sequentially with the frequent insertions of Lina's troubled flashbacks with her husband, Kang, who is the sole survivor from the previous mission to the streamer. But he was, as you expect, going mad. In the journey to the lighthouse, the epicenter, they experienced the loss of memory. They just awake and then completely devoid of memory how they came to the swimmer. And the failure of all communications and attacked from genetically mutant animals like this one. It's a deer, and we have there's 3 branches inside of this horn. Yeah, it's really But this is good-looking deer, but there's like fierce animals like bears and crocodiles. They are attacked from these animals. And discover what happened to the previous expedition through video footage left by the Lena's husband. They record. They know that what's going on in the shimmer, and they want the other one. The others who follow the trail can see what happened in their own fortune. So they recorded and they left it. And they, this Lena's husband, Lena can find what happened to the husband and their trails. They encounter an unusually mutated biosphere in which plants, animals, and human bodies are strangely interlaced and interfused across the barriers of species. This, this visual image of Rhizomic is here. So I can show that. Yeah. Clearly illustrated by the body of the soldier in video, in which his abdomen showed weird slice-ring intercene, and whose corpse turned into the host of lichens. They discover from the plants taking on a human-like form that the shimmer functions as a prism for DNA refraction. It's just like a virus environment. Something comes in and it refracted, this shimmer atmosphere refracted your DNA, whether it's a human being or it's an insect or it's an animal, and it grabbed it onto the other organisms like a virus, and it completely changed this organism. This is really like a virus. The distorting and transforming everything that falls within its boundaries, including physical bodies, human voices. Even human voices just transplanted to other animals. Even psychic consciousness. Yeah. They notice the refracted infection of their own bodies. Yeah, they know that. Yeah. In the shimmer, you're infected too, like other bodies. So the choice left for them is either to refract into other beings, just face this reality, or you fight back and just destroy the area. At the lighthouse, however, Lena finds the viral logic of the shimmer replicating a human doppelganger, and when she goes to this lighthouse in the epicenter of the shimmer, and there find that there's another kind of logic that is slightly different from the DNA refraction, and it creates. I think it's really involved with the human being. Human being has as a result of this refraction, they produce their own doppelganger. It's like a cloning. So there, your own clone, is appeared before your eyes. Like suddenly, your son is just like your face with your face just appearing with yourself. It's really scary, right? So Lena finds the viral logic of shimmer replicating human doppelganger. Lena manages to extricate herself from the attack of her humanoid clone and succeed refracting her death drive into her clone, thereby annihilating the epicenter at the lighthouse. So she just destroyed the epicenter. Very much, she's really clever, with tricks. And she's tricking this humanoid. This is really stupid. So annihilating the epicenter at the lighthouse. So everything comes back to normal. So her husband, becomes what he was. So afterward, Lena reunites with the recovered Kang. But the final scene shows that it is not certain that whether they are real or clone, which is showed in their eyes. So everything becomes normal. The show was gone, but the one survived. It's not the one who existed before the shimmer. Maybe they are the clone. If they are the clone, what happened? What will happen to us? And that's the serious message of this movie. All right. I hope to show you a slight just part of two footages that I want to show you. So the Lozi, the other member, asked the Lina about the situation, and they all know that they're infected. And Lina know that she just she had her own blood test, and he knows that she got infected, and the virus replication taking place in a body like a cancer cell. So she knows that she was refracted, and the Lozi knows that by your left hand there's something planting DNAs of plant refracted into a body. So what she said there is that the leader of this band is called Bantris. She wants to face this reality, but Lina wants to fight against it. But I don't think that two ways is good for her. So the third way, Lozi's way is to connect with this new kind of environment. So she willingly take the risk. It's not actually risk. She wants to connect with this DNA reflection and becoming one of the part of this environment, and to be the human form that stand there, looks like a human being, but has no sign of organism and things like that. But we don't know that is this thing really dead or alive, right? So this is a completely unknown area. So when you go into the when you connect with the kind of new kind of environment, you have to discard all the conceptions, ideas of your worn out ideas about what's life and what's death. It's meaningless. To distinguish the death from life is meaningless in this situation. Maybe she's she's in a new kind of situation to go to live after this one. Oh my God. Okay. So I'd like to think about the new way of not being hosted to this planet. So the shimmer and the lighthouse is kind of rhizomic biosphere with genetic mutations without DNA boundaries. So this world is dominated by the post-Darwinianism. There is no evolution, though no rules or principles of the survival of the fittest. Everybody has just has to go out. There's no evolution. There's just no arborescent structure of hierarchies, and everything connect, just reflected each other and turns into something else. And that's not bad. We don't know that. So this post-Darwinian system of biosphere is depicted in the shimmer. And there's no hierarchies of living beings, no distinction between human and non-human. What they call these assemblies of hybrid. It's Bruno Latour's word. And the way they reflect it in this shimmer is exactly like a viral replication of the impacted human being in the lighthouse. And the human being, the disaster, I think disaster is cloning. It's cloned to a doppelganger. It's not like a reflection. You can reflect to the plant, you can reflect to the other animals, but human beings, it's a problem. They duplicate yourself. You're cloning yourself. This is a really big problem. So I think this movie shows that it brought you to the world where the pre-Anthropocene world, where the human being was still not available. Rather than you post-apocalyptic world, the disaster happens and there's nothing. So how to survive in this post-apocalyptic world? There's a usual grammar of this apocalyptic movies like World War, and the day after, and things like disaster movies. But this movie is not about disaster. It's a sphere that before human being arrived the planet, how was it, and how was going on, but how it made a difference since the arrival of the human being. How we became a host of the planet, and everything changed since then. That's the idea of this movie. So it is with the appearance of human species that the planet Earth, this movie as a shimmer, start to go wrong. The film imaginatively demonstrates that to view the reflection as malignant and cancerous mutation is the very symptom of anthropocentrism of the Anthropocene, which attempt to host the master, manage, mediate, marshal the nature according to metaphysical dichotomies of normal and the abnormal, natural and hybrid, and the homely and the uncanny. In this respect, the Anthropocene is the epoch in which our becoming host in the planet itself appears identical with the beginning of the nightmare of the Earth's history. This is the way I interpret this movie as a kind of our answer, the possible answer to the Anthropocene and Anthropocentrism. Yeah, there's the pictures that they show at the movie. Is it nice? Is it nice? It is, you can have your cute pet like deer, and then you just appreciate this kind of flowers at the same time, right? You don't have to go separate way to the the plant garden and the animal zoo, right? You can see that in one entities, plant and animal. You have to think about why, how we classify all the things into plant and animals. But in the DNA, they don't know this kind of distinction. Right. So Bruno Latour think about this kind of new way of political movement against this Anthropocene is called Ding politics, like politics of the things. But I'm not sure this could be our way of doing the politics in terms of ecological crisis. So he think about this politics is no longer limited to humans and incorporates the many issues to which they are attached. So pretty much everything is in there. So the human being cannot be the sole subject of this struggle, and everything else that we are familiar with can be the included in this struggle. And so the human subjectivity has to be replaced by the assemblage of things, including human beings within itself, and things like that. So this is really complicated. So I just want to, in conclusion, I'll show you that my own idea of this lecture and the idea of think politics in this way. So Annihilation brilliantly dramatized what is at stake in the Anthropocene. In the face of ecological catastrophe, our sense of justice in the apocalyptic narrative still remains fundamentally anthropocentric. I mean, even the moral exhortation to change our anthropocentrism is also anthropocentric. That's really ironic in that moment. It is not radical enough to imagine a world without human being, but still, we think about the planet and the Earth in a human-centered way. Our world has always been a planet embedded in the cosmos, but not at its center. And we have always been at once nature and its destroyer. As long as we conceptualize the Anthropocene as the apocalyptic era, demanding our war with the unnatural, the abnormal, and uncanny, the final story we could get will be a melodrama of human demise against hostile nature. In the rhizomic shimmer of hybrid beings, however, life and death becomes indeterminate. Everything happens as an event of assemblage. The survival of human being depends upon the indifference of non-human things. Perhaps what we need in the post-spiral world is, ironically, the ability to imagine the world where human being steps down from the state of the host and turns to the role of becoming virus, becoming microbe, becoming parasite. So I think it's the idea of the guest or the nomad of the earth. So we have never been the protagonist of this planetary drama. It is a fantasy of humanity in the short era of the Anthropocene. So what is thus requires the rhizomic unthinking of anthropocentric hostism and machinic line of light from the sentimental melodrama of anthropocentric apocalypse. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Woosung. This was a very, very not only informative but also very exciting speech. We both are wearing black because I think subconsciously we felt that this was a very solid topic. But toward the very end, I think Woosung suggested a kind of a cheerful ending. Come what may, it's beautiful. Come what may. Well, this serves as a very good kind of a prologue to the whole mini-series because what we're trying to do is in fact to try to have a kind of a alternative view on the Anthropocene, having experienced this pandemic in a kind of unprecedented way because when SARS happened. I was then, at the city government. I was seconded to the city government as the director of culture, and we even went, went in front of the hospital to have people sing and dance and all that. It just didn't seem to us that SARS was such a terrible thing that would. Involve us in a depth of life struggle. But this pandemic just kind of completely changed our kind of perception, or even actually the feel of what the virus could be. Yeah. So I think that's a good warning or reminder of how our lifestyle, how wrong our lifestyle has gone. So, I just like to say a few things that just maybe complements what Woosung just said in his talk. But before this mini-series, we had a forum on the viral apocalypse. And the point it was precisely also to see what went wrong with our lifestyle. And of course, during the process, something, in addition to the problem with our lifestyle, something else came up. Of course, no surprise, racism. And you mentioned racism, but you didn't really go into it.
Mm-hmm.
Because racism is, what's interesting about racism is it's so closely connected with the idea that, that humans are the pathogen of the earth. But then, it's very easily turned into something else, racism. Because, like this very radical American ecologist, activist, quote-unquote philosopher, David Foreman, he once made this very, memorable comment that that the human being, overpopulation is the fundamental problem of the earth right now, and the human being has become the human pox, smallpox and all that. But overpopulation. I mean, where is it happening? Is it North America or Canada or Australia? No, not even Europe. Overpopulation is happening, quote unquote overpopulation is happening in the third world. So what is he suggesting? Very clear. There's too much of those non-white population in the world. They are, creating all these havocs wreaking all this havoc on the world. So, talking about the humans as the pathogen is very dangerous unless we really clarify what it means. So, this is just sort of a supplement to what you just talked about. I just thought having this note would be interesting. Would be, could serve as a good reminder, and this connects to what I talked about, in that previous forum. I began my talk, with this short story by Jack London, which probably no one here, or maybe most people in the English discipline have read. It's called The Unparalleled Invasion. Have you heard about it? You have? Okay. It's Jack London. You know Jack London. Such a defender of the wild. And in this short story, he just says, it's a short story, but it's connected also to two of his previous reports from Asia when he was a reporter, a journalist in a war, And this story is very simple. It just says that China was then under Japanese, might one day become part of Japan, and then Japan would really change the Chinese, and the Chinese would of course expel the Japanese and become a very, very powerful country. But they're so powerful that they don't really want to invade other countries because they're good enough. But the thing is, they're overpopulated. So they just kind of seep, the populations is kind of infiltrated gradually into all these other countries surrounding China. And then the West tried to stop China from doing that. And in the end, they thought of this very clever scheme. They just surrounded China with all kinds of military. They could not beat China, so they just surrounded China with warships and everything, troops, completely, and then started dropping all kinds of germs into China, all kinds of germs, whatever you can think of. So then the Chinese get infected, and they of course they would try to escape, and when they reached the border, they were all killed, by these troops surrounding China. And a couple of years later, 2 or 3 years later, they went in and tried to clean up the territory and eliminate any remaining Chinese. And then they repopulate Chinese with better population.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the story. Closely related to germs and all that, pandemic. But that's the imagination of how the world can be bettered. If this areas where the population is too much, we just have to really do it. Anyway, I'm talking too much. We have maybe 20 minutes for question and answer.
Okay.
Colleagues and friends of God.
Can I raise a question? Probably some sort of slightly remote from your time frame. I'm thinking about the beginning of, at the end of 18th century, beginning of 19th century, when geology was beginning to become a discipline. And that's at the moment when a lot of philosophers and so-called geologists, natural philosophers, are trying to find chronicles and chapters in landforms and trying to figure out how to read the Earth, the history of the Earth. So I found what you said about our human history is uneven or disruptive in connection with geological time. That was, of course, correct from our point of view. But in the 19th century, they are trying to figure out the connection or the analogy or parallel between human history and the history of the Earth. And especially at the time of the French Revolution, a lot of upheavals and catastrophes, they are trying to find support from the Earth history, saying that, perhaps, what they do in France and what they encourage in people's revolutionary ideas can be kind of finding support in the material, in the natural historical world. Right, and I found it amazing what you said about we need to find perhaps a way to think outside Anthropocene, because I agree with you totally. The idea is really puzzling, right? At the same time, we are considered the host, but we are also the parasite. We are the culprit, and we are also the kind of captive of the whole system. Right? It's really puzzling. But I think what you're trying to figure out, perhaps the third mode or your different mode of thinking is very similar to what they had in the debate in the early part of the 19th century between Georges Cuvier's the catastrophism and James Hudson and Charles Lyell. They promoted a different view of looking at the history of the Earth. They finally called it something like uniformitarianism. So the world history is not only marked by single or only a series of great catastrophes. The universe is always undergoing changes. The change is long term and some sort of a pattern, right? Uniform. Right? We have to figure out that pattern. This is what you're trying to figure, kind of thinking outside the two opposite box. And one final thing, the film is really, really eye-opening. I think what we are experiencing, perhaps not in Taiwan, but in Europe, all the zoos, all the parks are really alive without human beings. The deers come out, the fox comes out. Right? The nature is thriving without us, without our participation. So this is a really a new world. Right? Thank you.
Thanks for great ideas. By the way, you can have my file on this movie and English subtitle right in this computer. So it's, after the lecture, you can download it. I think that is quite interesting question. So when I'm saying when I was saying that there's this disruptive and uneven relationship between geological time frame and thinking of human history, is that this Galileo think that just the Earth moves around the sun, right? So everyone knows that. Scientists prove that. But still, our way of thinking, even the scientists' way of thinking, is that still think this geological history, geological time, in terms of human history. That's the way we did, right now. And I think one of the proponents of the Anthropocene is still thinks that, human kind of frame and historical frame can be explained in terms of geological frame. I think it's still anthropocentric in some way. So there is you have to admit that this cannot be explained. How could you, this short-term, upheaval and catastrophic idea of human history can be applied to this geological time? You cannot prove the geological time because it is always after the effect, after the event. The future generation, they are the only one who can estimate the impact and this kind of whether this is really compatible with the human history. But we don't know that, right? So this idea of matching this geological time and human history is itself, at some point and in some sense, has some kind of anthropocentric ideas, and we have to realize that. And then, so what I don't like, I was really obsessed with, for 2 months is why I so reluctant to accept the messages of Anthropocene, how they react to this apocalyptic way. Is that so? My answer is that so it's about it's related to what I talk about this links to Sebastian's idea that the human being as a pathogen. So this is two kind of responses can be had in this kind of reactions. That so one of them is, as I said, in the lecture, that you still think that you can be you really hate to being a pathogen, and deliver this virus to other people who cares about you, right? And things like that. So it's kind of shame that if you be an infector and deliver your viruses to other people, it's a real shame. You did nothing wrong, but it's a shame, right? But the idea of anthropocentric apocalypse is make you guilty. This is, it's completely different feeling then. When you feel guilty, you cannot do anything. You just suffer from the traumas, and you just you regret about doing something wrong, right? But the being ashamed and being feel guilty is completely different emotions and affect. I think the former makes you act in order to prevent this kind of problems, but being guilty is make you not act, right? I think some of this apocalyptic tone is very much religious, even Christianity. Yeah, Christian. When you feel you're guilty, you just repent, and you just individually you can be a better person, but being ashamed of your own being as a human being or as a human individual, it makes you act and connect with other people in very different way. And that's my idea of why this is making me so unhappy about this one.
Thank you. Thank you for the talk. I'm a little bit fussy about the details of the film, but if I remember correctly, what happens is that a meteor hits the Earth, and then you have this wave that is changing the environment, right? Is that correct? Is that what happens in the film, that you have this meteor hitting the Earth?
Yeah.
And then
it's in the start of the film,
Right. So what you have is this sort of perfect circle that gets wider and wider, and that makes it somehow predictable. I'm really interested in this idea of sort of environment where everything is sort of joined, and you have this non-Darwinian sort of post-evolutionary assemblage. But at the same time, the movie is told in a very traditional format. It's a quest. To get to the center, and that brings back the sort of classic tropes of the mission, the hero, the obstacle, the consecution, the cause and effect. So how come that in order to conceptualize this sort of radically new environment, this sort of place where agency and selfhood and all these categories are in disarray, but in order for us to conceptualize that and to engage with that, we still depend on very classic, very traditional forms of narrative. And with COVID-19, to a certain extent, it's the same thing. We're all worried about patient zero and ground zero, and where it starts and where does it go. So we're looking for a plot to a certain extent. And that's where, I guess, the whole racism and stigma and scapegoating comes in. So what do you make of that fact that in order to engage with these ideas, we're still using very old narrative forms and structures?
I know that, yeah. Thanks for asking. I have no time to explain the difference from the original novel and the filmic representation. I can answer in two ways. One of this, as I said before, there's clear difference between this filmic version of and the novel itself. The novel, does not follow the traditional way of depicting the movie. Yeah. They just go and they just swipe out. Even the narrator just killed at some point. And there was this beautiful scene where the Lina's idea of the affection of the things out there. There was this pool in a house where it was neglected by his father, but there's all kind of things prosper in this deserted pool, and there was like a garden, and she remembers the thing. And this memory brings her to the very natural to the humorous environmental situation, and this was just gone in the movie, and this is one of the things that I'd like to ask about it, think about it. So in a way you are true that the movie just follow the old traditional way of patterning the skull into the trace the one and then the search for the trail and then they find some kind of solution, then coming back and like here. But on the other hand, when you think about the way this movie take issue with this kind of problem solving is that it comes as a failure after all, right? And then the failure comes from the idea that the meteor hitting the Earth has the as I said, malignant effect. They instantly think that this humor has this malignant virus kind of effect on human being, because they think that everyone comes in this area does not come back. It's only the standard they find that this is malignant, but we don't know that. And afterward, at the end of the movie, we don't still find that this area has intrinsically malignant or not. So this movie at least take issue with our attitude to approach this catastrophic event as kind of inherently or essentially harmful to the human being, which means that we still think about this whole situation and must the change and everything in an anthropocentric way. And that's what I read about in this movie. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the earlier one.
Did you even hear about my? I'm joking.
I have two questions here. The first one is it's actually based my apology. That is, I want a clarification. Also, I think also there's something at the end, toward the end, that I feel very intriguing that I want to have some sort of responses from you. The first one is really about the Anthropocene. And then I see there is a sort of ambiguity in the conclusion there. I don't know if you share that kind of understanding with me or not. That is, the ambiguity is that the Anthropocene can be both anthropocentric and non-anthropocentric. I guess that's what the idea of the Anthropocene is there all the time. I guess I don't know if you share that kinds of ambiguity there, and then if you do, then I do really appreciate the insight you have out there. That is the idea that is somehow we do need a very new materialistic way or ontological way of looking back at whatever discourse we're producing, including the very big one, the Anthropocene there. So the contribution you have there is very important in that sense there. So that's the number one question I'm asking here. And the number two question that I have here is, I don't know if you are aware of the Melasou's work, the recent work about so-called astro science fiction. Melasou. Yeah, and then the reason I bring this up is that he has something that's a little bit working like what you did here. The basic argument of his is that he would have to be going after his own problematic, because his own problematic is about talking about how could we be really anthropocentric. And then so in his greatly known work After Infinitude, basically says whatever you do, any knowledge, that you cannot really get away from being anthropocentric, right? And then so in this recent essay he has here, he's going to the literary imagination in science fiction, and then so he's trying to break science fiction into two kinds. One is about the science fiction that is still scientific, and the other is that not. And actually you're bringing out something I think Melasou was considered as an example of astro science fiction. That is, it allows us to use our imagination to think otherwise, outside the box of the anthropocentrism. And then in that sense, right, it like what I think is quite similar to what you have done here. That is, you bring the sci-fi this annihilation. Another one I think will be I think about the same year or 1 year apart. A very also equally interesting sci-fi alien movie is the Arrival.
Yeah.
And then that one I think could kind of pair with this one very well in the whole sense of your argument, I guess. And then so they fit Melasou's argument that is somehow we have to imagine some sort of force outside. And then we imagine that based on that force, the impact on us. And then even though we don't understand that force, I think that's a basic definition of his understanding of the astro science fiction here. And then the reason I bring him up is not to be showing anything. It's like it's trying to build a kind of bridge of what we are doing here, your arguments, and also what we are doing here in the English department or in the idea of the Anthropocene. Because what is a big issue in Anthropocene is the imagination. That is, what is Anthropocene? That is actually one of the biggest issues once we have the idea of the Anthropocene. And then, so the imagination here is somehow matters. And then when even the becoming itself requires imagination. And requires, and I think you favor novel over film in the sense because the novel will give you more space for that imagination. So the second question, I'm sorry for this long elaboration, but the second question is that in the Anthropocene here, right, if it is ambiguous, how we could actually try to keep it ambiguous? I mean, Melasou would have a good kind of suggestion for us, that is go to literary imagination and try to have that imagination as substantial as possible, even though we don't really have anything credible about it. Okay, I don't know if you would take that kind of approach or you would like to respond to that approach at all. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't read Meya's recent book, only after contingencies. The one that I read, and then I like Meya's idea about this contingency of the Earth and astro science fiction and things like that. And it is, so one of the features of new materialists, including Meyasu, is about the emphasis on the aesthetic or literary imagination. That in order to go beyond or overcome this the scientism and things like that. I completely agree with you that we have to. I'm not saying imaginary or imagination, but we have all kinds of affective ability to think beyond or think outside the box, and that this is really required. Yeah, not as a kind of alternative to the sciences, but to make science be a science, we have to think about this kind of new way. And I'd like to call this as a rhizomic thinking, because you have to bold enough to connect that this when hitherto you think heterogeneous and incompatible at the same time. That's why we have to do as a thinker. Unthinkable things happening in the reality. So we can do. We're a thinker, and we're thinking and affecting and imagining other things. So I completely agree with you. And about the Anthropocene, if I'm the one who can decide what kind of name is really good for replacing the Anthropocene, I'd like to go to Anthropocentrism or something like that. You have to be more specific about it. As you said, there's no way to get out of this Anthropocene, anthropocentrism. In one way or another, you have to be, we could be at least part of this subjectivity in order to cope with the situation. You have to think about anthropocentrism as a non-anthropocentric way, because you have taking responsibility as a human being, which with the feeling of shame of being a man and being a human being in the planet is quite different from you are the host of this earth, and you can do everything you want. You can cure this ills and problems with your own technologies and things like that. This is completely different attitude, and I call this Machinic, because it does not demand to the human being to be a machine. It's you have to admit that the things that around us is quite indifferent to us. They are not hostile. They are not be included in a kind of good or bad these categories that we are really like to think about it. They are indifferent, and we have to be indifferent to them, right? But there is no boundaries between them. It's always connect with it. That's why some machinic ethics can be required in order to really cope with the situation. Maybe yes, good comments. And
Okay, better.
So thank you for the very illuminating talk. My question is probably related to another follow-up from Sebastian's comment on racism. It's also interesting because we started this semester, in one of my literature classes, we started with racism, almost there's this a bifurcating racism going on in North America and in Europe. On the one hand, we talked about this pandemic in relation to the yellow peril kind of discourse from the Mongolians bringing the plague to Europe at the Silk Road, being this a passage, etc. And we ended with this recent Floyd kind of a racism too. So there are two kinds. One is this yellow peril, constituting a threat to the power, but the other one is the slavery kind of a narrative, among Black people in North America. So I'm thinking how do you read this kind of racism in relation to, for example, Dean Politic, and then you also ended your talk with this kind of noli and tangere is attachment knot. So I wonder how you kind of put all these together. And another comment, I think the anthropocentrism, I think if we read in the context of racism, maybe I think that there should be another prefix added to that, which is white, like white man's, centrism.
Yeah.
I think so. Like I wonder. Like it's interesting that you read all these like pandemic from the theoretical perspectives, and then what's your comment on this like recent racism, in relation to the Rhizomic kind of reading?
Yeah, I think so. That's a good question. I mean, racism is not a recent thing, right? We clearly saw that this racism can be, engrafted into other things, easily, right? We didn't expect that people in the Western countries thinking about China and Asians as a kind of source of this pathogen, right? And this is clearly, it's not just that racism. It's kind of misanthropism. They don't think the Asians as a same kind of humanity. They think it's like a virus, like white people think about the African Americans, and when they get them slaves. This is part of this anthropocentrism, clearly, and this is in our gene, not in our gene. Our means that, as you said, that the Europeans or the Western people. But I'm not sure that we are exempt from them. We have same kind of racism, right? But not the same kind of. But always. What is operative, what it works here is not racism per se, but it's kind of blaming others for our problem. It's always political decision to exempt ourselves from the problems at hand, right? So racism can be dangerous. I still think that if we pinpoint the date of the start of Anthropocene, I think that the 1492, the exploration of Western countries to the outside the world, outside the Western countries, this is a possible candidate, because they just not bring the what called civilization to the third world. They bring all kinds of pathogens to the South America. This after 100 years, more than 80% of the population was just wiped out, and it causes really great atmospheric impact and the world planet in the 1610, and that's one of the strong proponent of Anthropocene still insists that this is really great geological impact, not just historical impact. So it's a birth of racism and continuation of racism, and I'm not you see that the same kind of racism in Ebola virus and even HIV, right? And so Africans are just denigrated at that time, but so no limit tangere. Yeah. So don't touch me. Can be our way of loving, connecting. I think that being together to touch ourselves with our loving people. Why we throughout until now think that this is good? Not sure. Yeah, that's one of the things that we have to think about. Being together, caressing each other, having hand in hand, is is a good thing, and it's part of the fundamental basis of our civilization. But it's in crisis. So we think about another way of loving each other as a human being, not just a human being, not with the cohabitation with non-human beings, right? So touch me not can be our new principle of cooperation.
Right. Yeah, we are getting close to dinner time. So let me, if there's no other. Okay. No problem. we really appreciate questions from students.
Hello, Professor. We know that the Anthropocene is really is something that we cannot avoid, and it will always be in our life because Anthropocene itself is the age of human. But it causes a lot of problems that you have mentioned previously. But then, with the existence of the COVID-19 virus, I want to ask how we should reflect on ourselves regarding to the virus itself. I mean, we all know that it actually started from China, and then with the problem of overpopulation, and which is why it spreads as quick as like that kind of speed. But then, can we actually see whether the virus itself is actually one of our life savior or our problem solver here of Anthropocene, because it actually it started to reduce the population itself.
Oh, yeah.
Or is it actually a punishment for humans?
Solving problems.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, this is one of the things that Zizek mentions in his new book. You know, this idea that completely economical way of thinking to approach this problem. He mentioned about this episode when this Romania, when former Romania communist countries, there was a Ceausescu who really dictators for a long time. At that time, there was a rule that when you retire from the every 65 or 70 years, you cannot go to the hospital because you are not useful to the society anymore. It's really yeah. So how could you explain it? I'm not saying that this is inhuman, but we can do that. If the whole humanity agree upon that, we can do that, right? And that could be a best way to quarantine and save our health. I can do that. If I save my children, I can do that. But is this the best way to do it? It's not I'm not sure, but so I think Anthropocene is not inevitable. We can change the name, right? Since this outbreak, I would like really sincerely change this term to virusine. Yeah. We cannot do anything better than virus. So this is a virusine, or not Anthropocene. So, thank you.
Right, just for your reference, Trump just recently quoted from a Catholic, maybe Archbishop, saying that this is a punishment, and that will do good to the human beings. Anyway, and also many traditional societies, after anyone who gets beyond 70. They will be just sent to the mountains to die. And that's a way of saving food for the young. All right, I guess I'm going to just quickly end via making a comment. That you don't really have to answer. Because I just, after thinking about it again, I just realized that why I felt a bit uneasy about the end of your talk, because there seems to be some kind of laissez-faire spirit. Laissez-faire. If, for instance, the human being doesn't have to be a player in the Anthropocene, then we really don't have to do anything. Because the world doesn't, the earth doesn't really need us. After we all annihilated the world, the earth keeps orbiting. And maybe other animals will still survive.
Yeah. The virus.
And plants, they don't necessarily have to, become extinct with us, together with us. So, that centers around my comment centers around how on why we should do anything.
Hmm.
Mainly why we should do anything. If you don't, compliment everything.
So we are the guest.
Yeah.
We are the guest, the traveler,
Yeah.
nomad in the
See,
search.
that's that means that it's admissible that we don't do anything. So we probably should think about this.
Mhm.
And I think we owe Professor Kang a speech because he's been here for a whole year. And the department hasn't really hosted a talk by him.
Yeah.
So I think I just realized that, and then so I asked him, before you go, you have to give a talk. Not necessarily when you're responsible. I asked that we wanted to co-sponsor with the department, so that that this would serve as a kind of perfect final period
Yeah. Thank you.
for your perfect, beautiful period for your stay here. Yeah. And thanks again for being with us and giving such an interesting talk. Yeah. I hope to see you around.
Yeah.
And maybe here again, maybe in Seoul, maybe anywhere.
Yeah.
Well,
Great.
on Earth, if we still survive by that time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.